ल मैले नि गरेँ तिमीले नि गरेर होला
Uh,
गुड
uh, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So today we are hosting our episode 16 of Geo series, which is the topic is the OpenEO API. It's more related to Copernicus and satellite imagery processing, Earth observation, and cloud computing. So today our speaker is Parthitya Sharma. She is the remote sensing data engineer from BITO, Flemish Institute of Technology Research. And I'm your moderator. This event is jointly organized by Nepal Geomatics Engineering Society and OSGeo Nepal. And in this particular geo series, she will guide us about the what is OpenEO, some little bit of introduction, and after that she will dive into the Python code, I think, and she will show us what are the possibilities of OpenEO API. And yeah, so she will talk about OpenEO a lot. So after this event, so you will be more familiar into OpenEO API. So Parthishati, now the flow is yours. Please take it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, hello everyone. Uh, Good morning, good afternoon again. Uh, yes, as Tech said, I will be presenting you on OpenEO. Let me first share the screen, and I hope it will appear fine. I will share the entire screen. As Tech mentioned earlier, I will be presenting not just the presentation, but also I will go through how you can implement this in your own workflow. Please let me know if you cannot see the screen or if you cannot hear me. And also, I think I can hear myself from someone's audio. Please, if you have any question in meanwhile when I'm talking, then drop it in the chat. We will come back to it later, and I will try to answer um, the question, or at least I will try to guide you where you can find the best answer to that question. So I guess everyone can see my screen. Otherwise, just raise your hand or just someone open your mic and let me know. So Dick already mentioned that OpenEO API is a cloud computing. However, he also did mention about the terminology of Copernicus. But at this point, when we are starting, I request everyone not to get confused with is it Copernicus or is it an open source? How is it or everything? So in this presentation, I'm trying to introduce you only to the OpenEO API. Forget everything about Copernicus. However, towards the end of my presentation, I will bring in the element of why we always talk also about Copernicus when talking about OpenEO. Having said that, take the OpenEO API as an independent open source API when we start this presentation. So let me start without further ado. And in this presentation or in the whole session, I will be talking about why was this API needed or why such an API or cloud processing is supported these days. Then I will be following that with what exactly is OpenEO or what is the concept behind it, how you can implement a workflow using OpenEO API, and I have already mentioned you that it is a cloud processing API, but where can you execute it? That could be the main question. So I will guide you through a couple of platforms where you can use them. Also, you can use in your own environment if you prefer to. You don't have to rely on some others virtual machine or the virtual environment. So to the question of why, I think I can start with this slide, which assume that most of us here are the ones who work with the special data or the remote sensing application. So if I try to relate with our traditional workflow, what we usually do is like maybe we try to identify what is the problem we are trying to address. And based on that, we find the study area, and based on that, we try to download as many images as you want. So, in my experience, when I was working back in Nepal as a student, yes, an image used to take maybe 15 to 20 to or even 1 hour to download just a single image. Then you can imagine for maybe I want for the whole month or for the whole year, I would need a very good internet and so forth. But yeah, it would be the first task downloading. Then I will again have to clip it or pre-process it based on my requirement, and then only perform actions. Now that would be only one image task, or maybe two or three, four. But what about the situation when you have to download for the entire year, or for maybe the whole regional level, not just for a small area, which is the main idea behind remote sensing, to work in a larger scale? So in that case, you will also have to have the knowledge of how to do parallel processing or how to distribute it. So when you are doing remote sensing application, you will, in that case, you will require an additional person who will need to have an advanced knowledge of all these things. So maybe you will have a HPC engineer, or high processing computing, or high processing platform, or everything like that. So those are most common problems that were faced during the remote sensing application process in the traditional time. So with that, it gave a rise to cloud computing, and that's why I think most of us are very familiar with Google Earth Engine. That's one of the cloud computing environment. Similarly, there are AWS and several other provided by different agency and different environment. However, with that, the situation still remained that, okay, one platform is providing me certain data set, certain facility, and the other is providing something different. Every time I have to start my workflow in with one data provider, it changes when I go to a different provider. So with OpenEO, what we are trying to bring is an API that helps you to connect to different backend, and no matter which client you are using, client in the sense no matter which platform or which programming language you are using, the workflow will still remain the same, and it won't change much, or it won't change drastically. So it is just to simplify the workflow. Having said that, the main idea was of presenting it in collaboration with OSGeo is OpenEO is an open source solution. So it is a community driven platform or community driven APIs. So you also have an opportunity to contribute to it. Or yeah, you already have knowledge, I guess, by now, that what an open source would bring into the table in comparison to the commercial ones. So that was what we are trying to solve with the OpenEO as a cloud processing solution. And then I will jump into what exactly is OpenEO. That was the part about why OpenEO was brought into the place, or brought into the scenario. And for what exactly is OpenEO, I already mentioned you. It's an open source API, which was developed to not just access the data, but also it provides you with different tools to process them and analyze them. And since it already provides the backend, so you don't have to have everything in your own environment. Furthermore, it being open source, the data or the method that you produce are open source compliant. One example is stack compliant. So that brings in the concept of interoperability and reusability. So the method or data that you produce can be reused by someone else in an easy manner. They don't have to change, or they don't have to make the drastic changes in their own workflow. That is that a couple of things that's come up with the OpenEO, and that's what I wanted to summarize with this point, that you will be able to access data from different backends in a very simple and straightforward method. And by scalable, what I mean is, okay, you produce a workflow for a small area and you want to go for a larger scale, then you don't have to make changes within your own workflow, and you don't have to think about the batch job based processing or how to parallelize your job. OpenEO will handle this for you, or I will show you how it does in the backend. And then comes, I already mentioned about why interoperability and the reproducibility or reusability was a part of this. Having said that, I always try to emphasize, also being a part of OSGeo, that we always need the solution that are fair and open science and also open source. So OpenEO tries to implement in this a fair and open science principle in all its workflow. And I will also show you an example of how stack metadata are developed every time a result is produced with your OpenEO workflow. If I have to, I don't want to go into depth about the OpenEO concept. I just want to quickly highlight what exactly is there behind. So in OpenU, we use something called data cube. So these are multi-dimensional array in the form of maybe you have hyperspectral data, but for but for a varying age of varying time temporal period. So you have data in not just spatial dimension but also in temporal dimension. They are handled together as a data cube. And the best part about handling data as a data cube in OpenU is you don't user as you don't have to think about what is the file formats or what are the different size or what is going on behind, how can I manage the whole memory and all those issues. If I have to give you an example in the context of remote sensing, especially the data that I work with, suppose my data Sentinel-2 is available in TIFF format. So I will develop, if I wasn't using OpenU, then I might develop a workflow that takes into TIFF file and then accordingly does the processing and use it. Then I have to change again when a data is provided in a netcdf format or maybe in a COG format. So in those situations, it is tedious for users. As for me, maybe a remote sensing user who want to develop an application and want to focus on the part of application rather than all these things. So this is simplified with OpenU that you don't have to deal with what is the file formats that's saved, that's provided by the backend. I will also show you an example with maybe different data set, how this data can be accessed and all those things. So it is an easier concept, I would say. However, you can go into depth with this. This is one of the MOOC that I have been sharing for quite a while these days, which is Cloud and Cube MOOC. It is available for free in the EO college. So this is a MOOC of, I guess, 30 hours. If you have time, then visit it and explore how does data cube concept really come into place. Additionally, within the MOOC, you will also find the different remote sensing features being used. Having said that, the EO College could also be helpful for remote sensing users over here who want to learn more about the basics of maybe several other remote sensing topics. So they are freely available. So please go and check out if you like to. Now, let's go to the concept of how can I use OpenU. Okay, that was OpenU. OpenU is to solve the issue of downloading the data, do something in the cloud. I don't have to do the job, but how to use it. That's always the difficulty part because people get confused in where should I get started with it. Before getting started, please note that you can perform you can use OpenU with any of the library that you are interested in. However, we have a documentation guide on Python and R and JavaScript. But in recent development, what our OpenU community has been talking is like it can also be used in Julia. So you can go ahead and try with it. But for the users who find it difficult with programming or who preferred more of a graphical view, we also have this web editor. So whichever backend you are trying to connect, that will have a web editor, OpenU web editor, which will be more of like drag and drop based. So you can build a building blocks connected with each other and then finally get a result. I will show you that example as well in the latest slide. I also kept here the Jupyter Lab concept because in every backend you will use OpenU. They will provide a free Jupyter environment, which is a virtual environment for um, executing the process. Uh, it's not a virtual machine, I would say. There are a couple of backends that does provide you even with a virtual machine, but Jupyter Lab, I'm talking here more of a Jupyter environment. So that will be available for free for everyone, being open source. So these are the places where you can start working with whichever backend you want to use. I will also later show you what are the different backends you can use and what I usually prefer users to get started with. And if I show what is the simplest workflow to get started, the first step is you have to authenticate whichever backend you want to use. And the idea behind authenticating is to have a more secure environment. Yes, you can, and you can register it for free. It's like whatever I'm talking today, everything is for open source and for free. So I hope I don't confuse you with that because I guess I'm using this terminology free every time. So please, I want to skip it apart. But yes, you have to authenticate whichever backend you use. And in this case, I'm showing openu.dataspace.copernicus.eu. This is where yeah, most people get confused with, okay, is OpenEU Copernicus? No, OpenEU is open source. It has its own community, but Copernicus has come up with an idea to include OpenEU API in its workflow, seeing the advantage of using OpenEU and using the Copernicus backend, which is the Copernicus openeu.dataspace.copernicus.eu. You can access the different data set provided by them. I will show you in a while what are the different data sets and authenticate. Yes, that would be the first task. And if I compare with the traditional example of looking what is the area of interest you wanted to download and finding whether your data is available there or not, that would everything would be done by this simple step. In this case, I'm just trying to load Sentinel-1 GRD data for okay 3 days. Not sure why I'm just doing for 3 days, but yeah, okay, you can do for as many months as you want, or you can do just for one specific day if you know that okay, in this area the image was captured. Otherwise, if you don't know, you can directly provide a time range. Then in this case, I am going specific with VV polarization. But if you are doing with other collection, then they will have their specific bands as well. And we will, I think, in demonstration section, I can show you where you will find a detailed bands information. However, I assume for those who will be doing analyzing some of this data might already be familiar with the bands. Nevertheless, if you are not, there is already a list of bands that you can access with it. And another task is, yeah, it would be basic task of applying processing. In this case, I did as simple as apply SAR backscattering. So if you were doing in a Snap tool, then you had to download the whole data in your own platform, which is fine. If it is fine with you, you can go ahead. If you have your environment to do the whole thing, it's not bad to do everything by your own. It's fine. It's completely okay. You can take this whole thing as an optional. However, it could be as easy as this. That's the idea. You don't have to wait for 1 hour or maybe for the whole day to download the data and to just apply, put it in your machine and then apply this backscattering. That was the simplest task. And I use the two terminology here, general process as well as user defined process. The idea is in OpenEO, we already do have some process such as backscattering, applying neighborhood, apply kernel, and all those things. However, there could be situation where the process are already not there already, or maybe you have a naive process which is not there and you want to define your own. So this user defined process, in this case when I'm using simple Python, are the simplistic Python functions that you use, which you can directly bring into your workflow and use it. So we expect they are within the Python standards. Maybe, yeah, we, at this point within UDF, it should either be xarray, and xarray is based on NumPy array, so it should be, yeah, following those standards. That's something that's required. Otherwise, if it is Python acceptable, then anything that's Python acceptable can be brought within the UDFs. And the final step that I discussed about, maybe you have to parallelize the job, or you have to know which how many courses is there, or accordingly specify the number of course that you want to take, or the memory or the distribution of the job. Everything is done by this single line of code. You just say execute my batch. Then in the backend, they will identify how many cores should be occupied by this, and accordingly it will be done. And your data will be saved in your preferred format. In this case, I saved in a netcdf format, but we accept all the different kind like TIFF, or if it is one dimensional, maybe JSON, CSV. That's possible. Um, okay, I brought in the concept also of Copernicus data space ecosystem during my presentation so that I could explicitly say what exactly is OpenU and how, because for the people who know me or who have been talking to me, I have been mentioning most of the time about Copernicus data space ecosystem, and they get confused with it. If like, okay, OpenU is Copernicus data space ecosystem, or OpenU comes from the part of Copernicus. So that's not the case. Copernicus data space ecosystem is one of the backend that supports OpenU, and it is a whole ecosystem that not just includes data but also includes different API. That's where OpenEO API is also integrated, but OpenEO itself is an open source free concept that's also provided here. So that's the main idea. This is the ecosystem within which you have a streamlined data access and processing API. That's OpenU. But for those who are already familiar with data space ecosystem, they usually get confused. There are, I don't know if you can see my, okay, I hope you can see my mouse because I think, okay, I'm in reader mode. That's why I can. But here you also have Sentinel Hub API, you have OpenU API. So one of the common question I get from user is Sentinel Hub being the most popular one, and it is also streamlined data access API. Why both are in there, and isn't it kind of competitive or something? No, it is not. And don't get confused when to use Sentinel Hub API and when to use OpenU API. Sentinel Hub API within the ecosystem you will use when you want to access the data and to visualize or to perform basic operations. OpenU when you want to get the data, do more advanced processing, and then accordingly analyze. So if you want to focus on visualization, then it might be Sentinel Hub API. For more advanced processing, it would be OpenU API. That's one difference. And the other difference would be, yeah, it would be open source as well as non-open source. So that would be the only difference. That was OpenU instance within the Copernicus data space ecosystem. And in this backend, the different data sets that are offered are all the Sentinel collections, all the Copernicus collections, our missions, including Sentinel 1, 2, 3, 5, 3, and 5. Yeah. So you will find many other coming in the future. I will show you where you can find this. We also already have now available world cover version 1 and version 2 as well. This could be useful for some users who are interested in, yeah, because I know most of you are already using the world cover or the land cover map for further analysis. So this could already be helpful for you since it covers your globe. And Landsat 8 data is already there. High resolution PPP products are already there for season 1 and 2. Similarly, many data sets are coming. I will show you in the roadmap as well. And also a new concept that's going to come will be discussed in the demonstration section. Within the Copernicus data space ecosystem with OpenU, you can use the Jupyter environment. You already have a kernel defined OpenU. So there are many libraries that would be useful when using OpenU, or basic Python workflow are installed. Additionally, I already mentioned you the different web editor where you can simply drag and drop and connect with each other to get the final layer. And one more capabilities that you can find in data space ecosystem with OpenU is this marketplace, which is also called OpenU Algorithm Plaza. So the main idea of this is to share the code, kind of a reusability. So you can already see there are a couple of example and most of them are prototype. The idea behind this is I produced an algorithm, in this case maybe biopar, that is used to calculate different indices such as FAPAR, LAI, FCover. So those include a vast range of algorithms. And for you not to execute the whole process or not to build the whole algorithm, I share my code publicly like this. So all you do is you go there, you specify your area of interest, which indices or which product you want, and then get it. It's not me doing, it's also you can do the same. You can develop your own algorithm. It should be OpenU based, because the platform supports direct execution of OpenU codes. And then you can showcase your services here, so it is kind of like showing your work to an advanced users or advanced audience. That way you can reach out to multiple users. That's kind of sharing, concept of sharing and reusability that's available within the platform. Now I think I can go to the demo session unless there is any immediate questions that should be answered. I see there are a couple of questions, but if you don't mind, I think I will go directly to the demonstration. Sachin, is it okay?
Yes, sure. Let's go to the demonstration
Okay.
part first, and then we'll get back to question. Yeah.
Okay. So I told you, yes, you can use your own environment. So if you have your own Python environment like this, then you can execute it there. It doesn't has to be Visual Studio. You can do in PyCharm or any environment you prefer, whether it be Linux based or Windows based. Anything is fine. However, for easier for those who want to use virtual environments, the one that I discussed earlier, one of them provided is by Copernicus Data Space Ecosystem. So I will show you where you can find it. This would be the main website. I'm just trying to show you the different platform that you can make use of. So you can completely skip this, and you have Google Colab. You can use Google Colab as well if you don't prefer to use this. And all you have to do is within here, you find Jupyter Lab. So access Jupyter Lab. When you do this, for me, I'm already logged in. So it will directly log me in. However, you will have to log in with your this data space ecosystems credential if you're using this environment. And as you can see, there are different kernels already prepared for you. So I usually go for OpenIO whenever I'm doing OpenIO based workflow. But for today's demonstration, I already have an example. So I will show this and let me know. So this is something that I already said. Maybe I can walk through together with you. So if there's any error encounter, we will look into it together. So as I said, if you are using Google Colab or your own environment, make sure the package is installed in your environment. So OpenIO is available in pip or even in Conda, so you can directly install it there. And if you're using this OpenIO kernel, then it is installed for you. We also have, as I said, we do support different other programming clients. And here I have showed an example of R because this does provide R environment as well. However, if you have your own R Studio or your own R-based environment, you can simply install package OpenIO and then it's there. A detailed information or detailed guide on using R is available in the documentation, which is an entry-level documentation. However, my whole example would be based on Python. And then I will also show you how you can do the graphical user interface-based environment. Let me know if I run out of time or if I have to stop for questions, okay? Because it could be overwhelming as well as too much at some point. So as I said you earlier, there could be different backends. At this point, we have the openio.dataspace.copernicus.eu backend, and one is the Terrascope backend. We also have openeo.cloud backend, which is OpenEO platform backend. But with that, I think you are restricted within 1 month. But when you use OpenEO Veto backend, then yeah, this would be this. And the OpenEO Cloud, it's the same credential. But with OpenEO, the data space ecosystem, you have the authentication with CDSC. And now we have an upcoming concept of like OpenEO Federation, so that you don't have to think about which backend should I connect to. So this openeo.dataspace.eu would be replaced with simply openeo.fed. This is provided by Copernicus itself, so it will be released very soon. However, you can already see it within the environment. So if I just copy this URL and paste it in my different browser, then comes the web editor that I was discussing about. And this gives me access to the Copernicus backend. Similarly, the concept that I just said, federation, it gives you access to the Copernicus backend, but gives you a different backends option. So if I log in, then it would be my Copernicus account login itself. And if I see what are the different access to the backend, you can see it is at this point CDSC and Terrascope. By this, what I mean is like all the data that's hosted in CDSC can also be accessed using this endpoint as well as in Terrascope. The idea is that in futures, for others who want to collaborate or who want to also share their data openly, such as maybe the EODC, which is an Austrian platform, and also maybe from DLR, and everyone all over the globe, if they want to share, then they can collaborate. That's the idea, and it will be displayed within the federation endpoint. So if I go back, then let me quickly go back to one more slide. Just remember this slide, the different steps that are involved. First part being authentication. Then I would load the collection that I'm interested in, then apply the functions or the process within my workflow. and then I will simply execute the process. And if I'm very quick, or if there is any confusion, please let me know. Sometimes I can speak very, very fast. So, okay, let me authenticate. And if you see, then for me, I was already authenticated this morning, so it didn't give me this option. But when you try, then you will get a link that will lead you to something for like login in platform, like I did when I tried to log in to here. Or maybe I can show you again. So when I try to log in, then it will show me an authenticating platform. So okay, it didn't because I was already. But yeah, for you there will be a login link, and when you click there, you will be directed to the place where you can authenticate. So as you can see, the traditional method of downloading everything has been simplified. Like, okay, you don't have to download it anymore. And while loading the collection, you can already specify the extent of area as well as time. And next would be apply the process and configuration. So in this case, I'm taking whole of Netherlands. And if I see the bounding, then this is how my Netherlands boundary would look like. Because here, sorry, I forgot to mention, in this example, I'm trying to use the Sentinel-3 data to analyze heat wave. So I will load the Sentinel-3 collection and apply the area of interest, which is the whole of Netherlands for me in this case. I'm doing this for the month of summer because last year it was recorded as heat wave. I assume it would be same if we see the sun this year. But yeah, so I'm trying to load it for the last year from the month of June until October. And there comes my part of loading the collection. So in this case, I specify the collection ID that I'm interested in. So if you say, where do I get this ID from? That would again be here. So here, if I see under the collections, there is Sentinel-3 SLSTR labeled to LST layer. So if you already know Sentinel-3, then it is very complex mission, and it has different products derived from different sensor, I would say. And one of the combination is SLSTR, which also provides a derived product, which is land surface temperature. So here you can find the ID is this. And if you go down, then you will see what you can specify the different bands for this. And it will be same for if you use for maybe Sentinel-2, and what are the different bands it has or it has to offer, and what is the special extent that it gives, because there are some products that does not give you for the entire globe, such as vegetation index. This is a product that was prepared for high resolution, and this is available only for certain extent. So you do have to get into know that what are this. So I use Sentinel-3 SLSTR land surface temperature. This would be the one. Here is the description. And then I provide the land surface temperature band. However, if you see, I'm specifying a separate collection as well, or the separate data cube, if you remember the concept that I mentioned earlier, because I want to load a separate quality layer. Confidence in is the quality layer, or for the Sentinel-3. So by quality layer, it is something similar to SCL. SCL in Sentinel-2, which is to mask out the cloud or the not good quality data or something. Here, I to be in a simple sense, this is just a quality layer that I want to mask out from my main data. And if you see, this happened very quickly, which is not the case, right? When you download, it goes on time and again. But in this case, it happened quickly because now any processing is not going on in the backend until now. So far, we are only creating the data cubes. That's what I mentioned earlier, by different areas and flexible in using and everything. So far, we haven't executed anything. We just loaded our data cube. Now we apply the masking to our main layer. So we say in the mask as well, the confidence layer, get me all the values that's greater than this. So if you see this, then here I'm applying simple Python logic, and you get the layer. And from my land surface temperature layer, I'm masking out the mask. So this mask is a process that's already there. And if you get confused that what exactly this mask do, then again go back to this platform, and within here you see what is mask. It should be here. Okay, this is the one. And it will give you the whole idea of what it does and what it returns and what are the different parameter it takes. For users who didn't like always going here and there between the platform, let me tell you that you can do everything here within. There is a separate getting started guide in how you can fetch the entire process here and learn about them and everything in a programmatic approach. But I just wanted to show a relation between the both of these. So that was done. That was the basic process that I applied. But if you remember, I also told what about the situation when OpenU already does not have a process and I have something in Python that I want to implement in my workflow. There comes the concept of user defined function. And I know it looks very ugly here, defining everything in a string. So what you can do is you can create a new Python file and put everything of this within there and import that Python file here as a UDF. That's possible. I'm just defining here for the purpose of example. And if you look into here, the input that I'm sending from the data cube, my cube is always sent in while sending it in a UDF is a data array, fx array. You can convert into a NumPy if you find it easier working with NumPy by just converting with dot value, which is a simple algorithm that supports in xarray. I won't go into depth with that, but that's possible with xarray. So my conclusion is like you can do very simple Python workflow in a UDF, and that you can load as a UDF. Here I'm saying in my time dimension, in my data cube's time dimension, apply this UDF to the whole thing. So I'm using the OpenU process, bringing in my UDF and applying it to the whole time dimension. And then I'm using again another process of OpenU called reduce dimension. So here what I want to do is like I want to completely reduce my time dimension and get the values for a certain pixel and sum it up over the time. So this if I explain it in application way, it might get confusing. But what I wanted to say is like today in this pixel, if the temperature value was greater than 295, then record it. And if it is again greater than 300 for more than 3 days, then again record it and sum it up, like find it how many days in total was there the temperature higher than certain amount. Because in Netherlands they have this concept, if the temperature is more than 295 continuously for 5 days, and if it is more than 300 for continuous 3 days, then it is recorded as heat wave. Otherwise no, it has to be in a continuous phenomenon. That's why I did the terminology of reduce by summing up the whole dimension. So that is something you can do. So I don't know if I executed the process, but I can do it again. Okay, so this is how it would look like. So that shows I didn't. So if you can see from my Sentinel tree, I passed in my LST layer, and then I applied the function within that layer after masking. The input from this goes there. So this is how you can play around, and this is something you can do here. That's what I meant earlier. So you bring in the collection and you specify the bounding box that you are interested in, or if you have a GeoJSON, just drop it here. You just have to change what are you trying to do, and then specify the temporal interval, specify the bands that you are interested in, and then just connect with a different process. So it would be mask. So you just have to do this. And for this one, you just bring another mask layer. That's all you have to do when you are doing graphical way. Programmatically, that's how it forms. So I apply my UDF, and there goes the apply dimension and reduce dimension. So that was all. And nothing has processed yet, but my heat wave algorithm is finished. And now I want to download the result. This is not a common concept that's shown everywhere. However, we do have a page discussing about job configuration, which is for advanced user who knows how to play around with these things. So suppose I just increase my memory ahead so that if someone else is using, then I can do it. However, note that there is a limit on how much you can do so that not everyone exploits it, because there are people who does exploit the freely available resources. That was the reason there is a limit to it. However, there is the possibility to do that. And now I simply say execute my data cube that I have created so far. I give a title to this job so that I can close my laptop, later come back any day of the month, and then again see what is the result. So I just save it as a netcdf in this case, but as said, you can also save it in TIFF. So if I simply run it, so my job with this job ID has been sent to the backend, and there could be a queue because it's a batch job, and then accordingly it will process. So far I didn't have to think about what to do. So you can completely skip this step as well, and you don't have to provide this option. So as you can see, the job is created, and once it gets, it will run. So this thing I can also monitor back here. So you can see my this job was created with this job ID. I'm using today for quite a while. That's why it all comes back as a number, but it will come back in a time, in a while, I would say. And here, for advanced user who knows how to deal with logs, we have an advanced log that would be available within here. So far, it's just created, it's working still, so there's nothing. But I can show you my past job logs and how it would look like. And these are usually helpful when yeah, you know how to debug, or you don't find what could be the issue and you want to reach out to us. Then there is a whole list of what is going on, how you can find the data and everything. So that's possible. So you can see there is something issue that happened when I wanted to create that job, that extent was not correct or something like that. So this kind of information, you find it. So while this is running, I can stop this. Though it is stopped here, I want to let you know that it stopped in the Jupyter environment. Similar would be in your case, it would be just stopped in the Jupyter environment or in your local environment, but this is still running in the backend. You can always go back here and check what's happening here. Okay, someone is calling, and sorry about that. I will, okay, sorry that. Okay.
Nidhi, if you want to message him quickly, then you can do that right
No,
now.
I think
Yeah,
it's fine.
it's
It
okay.
will take some time, I guess, but
Okay,
it's okay because I have already booked in my calendar, and it was until, okay, I think I'm almost out of time. That's what it shows. That's why. But
okay,
okay,
yeah.
the you can see it's okay for that one. I'm really sorry about that. So as you can see, it is still running, though I interrupted my kernel. So if you completely want to stop it, then all you have to do is you have to stop it from here. Otherwise, it will go on running. For my case, I will leave it to run, and then just leave it like this, because I already have a backup of the data, how it looks like once it's ready. And the further step that I'm doing is simple Python stuff, nothing with OpenU. I'm just loading my data using Xarray, because for netcdf, I usually find it easy to load with Xarray. And I'm loading my land surface temperature layer. And if I visualize it, this is how it looks like. So in case of Netherlands, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, they have these are quite popular and very touristic cities. So you can see there was high measure of heat wave compared with the others. Similarly was for the Antwerp and Brussels, which are popular city in Belgium. But you can say that, okay, you only took areas for Netherlands. Then why was there also a result for the Belgium region? So this is because I didn't explicitly filter out for the bounding box specific. There is a function to do that as well. However, I said within this region, find the area within this region. So it went with the bounding box for this reason. So when it tried to do the whole bounding box of Netherlands to cover this way, so it covered kind of the thing. That was the case. That was more or less about how you can use OpenU in your own workflow. I showed an example with Sentinel-3, but you can do it any others. However, I also wanted to highlight the concept of cost or credit that's there in the OpenU no matter which backend you use. And the idea of cost is, as I said, not to let everyone exploit the resources. Uh, however, it has freely available costs. So, okay, my job is still running. That's why I think, okay, I interrupted it. That's why it couldn't identify. But once it's done, I will show you the total amount of credits that was deducted. But I think I can already show you if I have others. While that is running, I can show you here also. You can find how many credits was deducted. So for me, I was doing for an advanced processing and it deducted only 15 credits. And for Heatwave, usually for the whole Netherlands, this test, it used to deduct me only 5 to 6 or 7 credits. But with the CDSC backend, you have every month of 4,000 credits, which will be replenished every month. So with this, you can do plenty of research. You can assume with what was just done. And again, I highlighted the concept of reusability. Uh, so all you have to do is, this was our workflow, and I save it as a public process. So you will get a link that you can share with anyone who wants to execute the same workflow. Or you can also choose to publish it like this here. However, as you can see, there is a user warning that I didn't define any parameters. So this is your choice if you want to define parameters or no. If you don't define any parameters, then user will not be able to put in any input. That's the basic idea. So that's why it's always recommended to save the process with the parameter if you want to use it for later as well. Otherwise, you have to every time come back and run the same process. That's all. And I think I covered most of the part. Let me see quickly. Okay, that was for something else. So that was about demo, and there I can understand that this 1 hour session was not enough to understand the whole idea of what is going on, because there is much more advanced thing that you can do with OpenU, and I don't want to overwhelm you with the whole thing. So I would again recommend that if you're interested in getting into detailed understanding of how DataCube works or how the cloud platform is in the behind, so go back to this MOOC and learn how it is. In there, we have also tried to summarize on what exactly is OpenU concept, because open science concept, because it is often confused with openly available concept and open source. This terminology are often misplaced. So I would recommend you to go back to this lesson and see if you are interested in. Additionally, the entry point for OpenU learning would be the CDSC documentation, where we tried in getting you the basic understanding of how you can do. And we also have a community example repository where we try to create new use cases based on every feature release, or whenever we find that, okay, this use case could be helpful for someone else, then it can be used. So a lot of examples are already available there, such as maybe parcel delineation using Sentinel-2, this oil spill detection using Sentinel-1. Heatwave was something that I just showed. We also have many other disaster-related notebooks. And recently, a best available pixel composite notebook has also been released, which could be helpful for users who want to get composite of an area for a certain point. And I can imagine you can still have question or you can still run into error, then please submit a ticket. This is for CDSE, but it's always fine. But there is also a forum where I encourage, rather than the ticket, I encourage forum, because forum is openly available for everyone and everyone can see. So OpenU being a wide community, everyone can come back there and answer you the question, because in ticket it's limited time and everything. So if you have very specific requirements, then submit a ticket, otherwise post it in the forum. That was overall. However, before concluding, I think I can show you the community examples, which I know is mostly helpful for users. So I would like to share this in the link just in case. And that would be one more thing. this, as I said, this is a community example. So tomorrow if you come up with a use case or any example that could be helpful for the community, then you can come back here and post it here. We will, based on review, we will request any changes if required, otherwise then we can accept it. If you are not a Python user, you are more familiar with JavaScript or R, then we also have this repositories available. We don't have many use cases already here. So for R, we are trying to prepare internally something. However, I recommend if you already have, then please do post it. This link I already share. Other than that, for documentation, you can find everything from within this page. So go to documentation and open you and all those things. So I think with that, I finished more or less what I wanted to share about OpenU. Still, if I miss something, then let me know. Then I think we can go back to the questions, right? Since we still have few times. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Didi. So, yeah, it was really wonderful presentation and the nice demonstration. I think everyone understand it because I feel like it's very simple concept, but
Mhm.
yeah, maybe you explain very well. That's why I feel it very simple.
It
But
is really very simple. It's just, yeah, we have taken remote sensing as very difficult thing, which is not. So
yeah,
if we,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
we,
Apart from the algorithm part, everything is simple. Of course, algorithm varies on the task whichever we want to do, right?
yes,
So,
that's upon us. Yes.
yeah, it was wonderful presentation. We have some questions in the chat, and
Mhm.
also before diving into the question, I want to ask you how much time we have, how much
Uh,
time you have.
it's okay. It's because I booked my calendar for a certain time. I think that's why I got the call. Sorry about that again. We can
Yeah.
take 5 to 10 minutes. It's okay.
Okay, yeah. So let me dive into the first question then. I think it's from Chiti's.
Hmm.
How would scalable processing work through API?
It depends. What do you mean by scalable processing? So, in my concept, when I said it's scalable processing, I meant whether you do for maybe a small extent or bigger extent, it goes, you don't, the workflow will accordingly be divided when doing the processing in the backend. You don't have to deal it with how to divide the job. However, there is the possibility that, okay, I want to send this specific task to this specific job and accordingly do it. So that would be a more advanced workflow, which we have like multiple job handling. So that's the concept there is in OpenU that you can do. So yes, it can be done through the OpenU API using the multiple job handling feature.
Okay, yeah,
That would
thank
be quick
you.
on this.
I hope it's helpful. And
Mhm.
we have second question from Sachin.
Mhm.
Sometime our AOI may be large area which may not be fit in a single image of satellite sensor. Does it provide the mosaicing image in such case when we apply spatial extent AOI?
So in OpenU, what happens is like the processing is done based on your special extent. So in this case, I gave for Netherlands. So you can imagine that the image when we try to download, so one whole tile might not fit the whole of Netherlands, or there was a gap between those. So it, I also gave the time extent, and it does mosaicing, yes, within. So you don't have to worry about that. However, I was also a bit worried when I looked at the question in the beginning. By not fitting, do you mean that you go completely beyond the extent of the tile? Then it would be expensive processing. I hope that you are aware of. But if you are saying that, okay, the same tile might not fit it, then yes, it will do mosaicing for you. And your area of interest will be the concern rather than the tile is available there or no. And if you don't mind, then I forgot to show you something which I think I can show, which
Yeah,
might relate
sure.
to this. Um, so for the concept just now, what you said, so my job is also finished. And if I look at the information, as you can see, for the whole of Netherlands, it was 5 credits. So you can do a lot from 4,000 credit. And there is additional information that credits are deducted based on the CPU time. So it's nothing with the workflow or how much it was based on the service, but it's more of a CPU time. So as much it occupies, accordingly it will deduct. So what I wanted to show you was this. So you can see it's not just one image that I'm processing. I'm doing a lot. There's a If you try to download the whole image, then I think you can sit down for a whole week, isn't it? I guess so. Huh? I'm not sure, but it's like it's doing for the whole this different level of tile. So Sachin, based on your question, suppose this covered for a small extent of Netherlands, then maybe this might have covered for the other small extent, and it handles everything behind for you. And this also shows the concept that I showed you earlier, that Sentinel-3 has the format .send3 because it is a product. And if you were writing on your own workflow, then I think you will like to know how to deal with the Sentinel-3. But with OpenU, you just load it as a data queue. So yes, you can see already what were the different tiles that was used while processing. I
Yeah.
hope that answered your question, Sachin.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it's a clear answer. And we have another question from Kshitij, I think. Are
Yeah.
derivatives data
Yes.
set available also, such as vegetation index, land cover,
Yes.
maybe
Yes, it
NDVI?
does. Yes, it is already available for NDVI. Yes, it is available, but if you are talking for very high resolution BPP, then it is available for a specific reason because it is processed for a specific reason only. World cover is available, as I said earlier, both version 1 and 2 for the whole globe. And there, if we only talk about NDVI or similar indices, then you already have spectral indices library integrated within. So you can calculate your own as well. But in addition to this, I also told earlier about the federated concept that's going to come into place, where suppose the data set prepared by Terrascope, which is a Belgium data provider. So they might have they are the one who are preparing this land cover map. So their data will also automatically be available within the OpenU Federation endpoint. So you can access all the different data set from different data store and
Okay, yeah.
derivative data. Yes.
Just another like connected question from me. So,
Mhm.
are you like planning to like extend the? I heard that you are planning to like extend the data set, data range. I mean,
Yeah.
federal something concept, right?
Yep.
Are you already start like communicating with USGS as well?
Is so it's like it's not communicating, it's not going from us to them. It's like
Okay.
someone want to host it here as well, or someone say
Oh,
that
I
okay,
see.
we also have freely. So first thing is like USGS should be open, that okay, we are openly giving data. So that should be the
Yeah.
first concept, because with OpenU it should be open source.
Okay.
So if they are openly giving the data, then yes, we can. But also tomorrow, if you as a person say, I'm tech and I have this data as my own product, and these are stack compliant, and we want to also cooperate with you, then that's also possible. So at this moment, we just started with Terrascope because this federation concept has not been, it has been released, but it has not been widely announced. Because and Terrascope was because it is in-house data store, so it was
Yeah.
easy to test it in the beginning.
Yeah.
But yes, there are a couple of other European warehouse, they are ready to kind of integrate with it. There's also conversation going on with how products produced by OpenGeo Hub can also be read with OpenU, because we have this new feature upcoming, which is load stack. With
Mm.
that, as I said, if you are preparing today one data set itself which is stack compliant, then using load stack you can already use it. So that
Yeah.
should not be an issue with any other. So if yes, USGS is interested, then, or if USGS agrees, then we can, yes, continue with integrating them as well.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for like clarifying this question
Yes.
answer. Yeah.
Also, I
And
saw a question from you is, I guess,
yeah,
is like,
yeah.
what is the maximum limit of memory that normal user can use? So with OpenU, you don't have a specific memory limit. However, job wise, you can do two job at once. You can only run two job at once, and it can be increased. But I can share you the quotes and limitation table itself,
Okay.
which gives you a different However, the main idea is with OpenU is the credit itself. So if you run out of, 4,000 credit in a month, then you have to wait for the next month to replenish it. Otherwise, it should still be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I think there is another
How many
like
user does
question.
the platform support synchronously? This is a CDSE platform, so on a daily basis we have more than 500, I guess. If in fact it's like there is a platform available today, 500,000, not 500, 500,000. So in documentation itself, I guess there is a dashboard available where you can monitor every day what was the total amount of data downloaded, or what was the total processing that was done. So let me quickly share the link as well to the dashboard.
Okay.
All this information you can find freely within here. So there is a not a limit of like how many can do. uh, However, in OpenU you also have this concept of synchronous job. The one that I showed you was a batch job based execution where you send to the backend, it's queued and everything. But
I
if you do
cannot see.
synchronously, then you have a limit of 10 to 15 minutes. So try to test that when you are doing, when you want to be resolved very quickly, or when you know that your area of interest as well as temporal extent and your workflow is not very complex. Because in my case the workflow was not complex, I could have done it synchronously.
Yeah.
So if it finished within 15 minutes, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
And there
And
is another connected question. If user can
mhm.
select course RAM of the process, won't it exhaust the resource backend has? Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does. That's why there is a limit. And that's why there is a limit. And there have been situations when there are users with different accounts trying to misuse the resource, then we have to accordingly take action on removing those users. Yes, there is. But having said that, for the job configuration that I did, I think this also in lies with what Chitish raised earlier. So yes, there is a limit of like maybe 4 GB or something like that. Also, when using the Jupyter environment, though it was not shown in mine, you will have different flavors of whether you want small server or large server or normal server. It is recommended to always start with a small server, because then you can know if you consume more or no, then accordingly increase. But it's a freely available service, so it is requested not to misuse. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Another question is from Anup. So does it provide COG in I think cloud native GeoTIFF
Yeah.
in other projection other than WebMarketer? Does it take any additional parameters so that we can reproject? If yes, does it calculate
Uh,
overviews?
do you mean providing data as a final output instead of NetCDF but as a COG format? Then I think that's something been discussed. However, you can already load data that's in COG format, and yes, output as well. This is something in process, because now the another focus that's ongoing is for vector data cube as well. So yes, the COG format is there, but for projection wise, we try to stick with the main one itself. Apart from, yeah, if you explicitly specify on which you want to provide,
Yeah, but I
otherwise
think
it should be 4326 itself.
yeah, if we use the user defined function and then
Mhm.
change the
Yeah, there
projection and
it's
download,
it's
does it
possible.
work?
It's possible that you do, but when it goes back, then it still assumes. So there could be a mismatch. So I don't think we explicitly have tested it. But
Mhm.
it, yeah, within UDF, yes, if you found that within UDF you can do whatever you want. So yes,
Okay.
that you can do, but that would again be a different task of why you want to change the projection within the UDF when the whole workflow is going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Maybe whenever we try to download the product, then we can like change the projection and then download at the end. I feel like.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Another question is from Hemraj
Yeah.
Bhai. Does this API provide a cloud cover filter similar to one offered by Sentinel Hub API?
So in Sentinel Hub API, it depends what you are saying. If you are talking about the Sentinel Hub browser, which provides Composite, so that's a visual composite that you are getting. And in case of OpenAI, you have to perform your own composite. That's something. If you are talking about the processing API, Sentinel Hub processing API, then yes. However, it does not have a explicit. It does have a explicit like filter out my SCL dilation in case of Sentinel-2. But what if you're talking about Sentinel-2, then you remember the parameter where I pass like special extent, temporal extent, then you can already specify the max cloud coverage, how much you want to. So 80% or 50% directly there, just like 80 or 50, then it already masks out the cloud. Otherwise, you can do something what I did today with Sentinel-3 confidence interval or the quality check layer.
Okay, yeah.
That's just
Uh,
the matter of processing, yes.
Yeah, and then Anubdahal mentioned it about like I think it's connected to the previous question, which was about COG and projection, and
Mhm.
he said that is it possible we can do, but if it will make the size bigger, which we don't want as a user.
Um, with the cog size, I think the idea is to make it as efficient as possible. So, and you will get the final output as a result. So, result wise, it would depend, but your workflow won't be big. That's something. I don't know if you're talking about that.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, otherwise, the final result would be how you would expect that would be the one. And cog, it's upon your choice. You chose it to have it cog. So, I guess that's the thing. But it is always, I think cog is going to be another standard format. So, it's kind of nice, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question or drop it in chat box. Okay, meanwhile, I can ask another question. So, recently there are like lots of discussion going in into the cloud native file formats like GeoParquet and then Cloud COG, right? So, what is the like? What is your thought on those file format? Are you going to integrate those file formats as well in the OpenEO API support? I mean.
Yes, actually, they are already supported similar to this
Okay.
question. So, yes, GeoParquet is also talk of the town for the moment, I would say, for especially for high, yeah, very large data set. And I think Kshitij, who is an expert in GeoParquet, is also here, I guess. Yes,
Okay.
they are already integrated, and they actually, as I said, the world cover one, they are world cover world serial one. They are integrating the OpenU workflow in them, so they are already using the very large data set, as you can imagine, they are doing for the whole globe.
Okay.
And it's kind of a nice concept. uh, but it won't matter if we are doing a basic research. That's what I would say. It's if someone here don't already know how to work with GeoParquet or find
Yeah.
this kind of fancy terminology of cog or anything, I would just say don't hassle, just a format. So you
Yeah.
can still go ahead and download in TIFF file. So in TIFF file, it would be multiple outputs. So you will accordingly get, and it won't be efficient. So with time, you would know that. And CSV is always there as standard, but there's JSON and everything. So these are something that comes up as a standard solution and based
Yeah.
on required, I would say, requirements.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? One, two, three. Okay, no questions. So then, yeah, I think we can conclude the meeting. So thank you very much, Pratiksha Didi, for like coming to this talk and then sharing your information. It's really valuable, and it's I feel like it's the growing cloud computing resource, the OpenEO. In future we are hoping to expecting to see the data from lots of resources like the Google Earth Engine, and it's the best thing is it's open source and it's free. So thank you very much for sharing your all the information, and I think we can end the meeting here.
Thank you very much, Tech, for having me here, and thank you everyone for joining my session, because I didn't assume, I assumed that it will be very silent session and it will be just Tech and me discussing here. But thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you very
Okay,
much everyone.
okay.
Yeah,
Have a nice
bye.
evening, morning, day. Bye.
Yeah.